We've just finished all of them. I want you to enjoy the interviews from people that you will not believe some of the personal things they're going to share with you. Their books, their testimony, every part of this program you will enjoy. Please sit back, enjoy what God has in store for you. Thank you for watching. God bless you. I love you. Thank you so much.
We're in one of our favorite places,
yes.
AfterLife Hotel in
NRB. 2013. We're still living. 33 years we've been doing this. We're still alive.
You sound surprised.
I know.
Anyway.
I tell you, when you're at my age, every day you wake up and you go, I'm alive. Before, when I was a teenager, I remember being a teenager. It was like, this is life, and then you start getting older and you go, this is wonderful. It's amazing how your whole thinking changes. We have a personal, close friend. I was showing him, his son's got the pictures over there, he's looking at them. We go all the way back to when I had a radio program.
Way back there.
And Mr. Controversy, Hank Hinnegraff.
That's his name. He's with us. Actually, all I have to say is the Bible Answer Man, and most people know who in the world you are.
He's a walking Bible.
Yeah.
I mean, literally. I mean, you hear his radio program, and people call in, and they're asking questions, and not only will he answer them, he will give the reference. And I'm going, there's no way somebody can do that. Somebody is giving him cue cards, but it's actually in his mind.
But he's also president and chairman of the board of the North Carolina-based Christian Research Institute, which is the largest apologetics ministry in the world. Did I do it right?
I think so, yeah.
Take a look at this cover. Get your copy. There's the website on the screen. Make available every book this guy has written. And then find his schedule. If he's in your area, or if a radio station doesn't carry his program, give him a buzz and say, you need to be carrying Hank Hinnegraff. And that will make a difference in your area. So, good to have you, buddy.
Thanks, Herman. It's good to be with you. Sharron.
Enjoy.
Good to be with you. It says here you were born in the Netherlands, huh?
What's that?
It says here you were born in the Netherlands?
Yes, I'm
Wow.
Dutch. Dutch is my first language.
If you're not Dutch,
you're not much.
Yeah, that's right. That's right. That's the motto.
Are you tight like Dutch?
No, I'm not. But you know, my parents were very frugal. They grew up during the war years.
Yeah.
And so everything meant something to them from a fiscal and financial standpoint. Now, having 12 children, I've had to...
9 of your own.
9 of my own.
And 3 adopted.
3 adopted, yeah. So, I mean, no matter how much money you make, you never make enough.
Oh, that's exactly right, man. Because it's like putting water in a hole that just has no bottom.
Yeah, that's right.
Wow. You and I are designed to live forever.
Yeah.
In your book, you love it. You say that. Why?
Well, because we were created in such a way that we have the image of God, or what's called the Imago Dei, stamped upon us. We are created as eternal beings to have eternal fellowship with God. And that's how it was in the Garden of Eden. Adam and Eve were created for everlasting relationship with God, but then they fell into lives of perpetual sin, terminated by death, and the rest of the Bible's God's unfolding plan of redemption, which culminates in a new heaven and a new earth, where we are resurrected to be what we were intended to be before sin entered the world.
Help me out, Mr. Bible Man. Did God know that Adam and Eve would do what they did?
Yeah, of course. God is omniscient, which means God is all-knowing. So God knew that Adam and Eve would fall into lives of perpetual sin. But to say that God knew does not necessitate that God caused, that he was the causal agent of sin. So in a biblical worldview, we say that God created the potential for sin by creating humanity with freedom of choice. Had he not, love would be rendered meaningless. If the only way you can get Sharron to love you is coercion, then it's really not love, it's coercion. And so God created the potential for evil by granting us freedom of choice. We actualize that evil. And we can see, by the way, in a very tangible, common sense, practical way that this makes sense for all of us. We can look back at things that we knew with great clarity that happened in our past that we didn't cause. So you can think back to something that happened in your past. You know you were not the causal agent, but you know exhaustively what happened. God simply knows not only what happened in the past, but he knows what's going to happen in the future. But that does not mean that our future is fatalistically determined.
You say heaven, the eternal expression of the image of God. Give me what that means. What does that actually say?
It means that you have the Imago Dei, the image of God, stamped upon
Where's Imago Dei
you are.
come from?
Imago Dei is a way of saying the image of God.
Okay.
It is a theological construct, as it were, that communicates that we have an image of God that is now tattered and marred by the fall, but one day will be restored. And what it has to do with is the notion that we were created to have relationship with God. That relationship has been severed, but it will be completely recreated in resurrection.
Now, when do we receive our resurrected bodies? Because that's a big... In fact, this book will cover so many... Because when I'm asking these questions, they're actually out of his book. So if you're going to say, "Man, that was a great question, I wish I had that," get his book. You've got not only the questions, but the entire answers, because we're just covering surface stuff today, but you go in depth when you get your book. But what does that actually mean? When we receive our resurrected bodies, what is that?
Let me sort of go back to a foundational principle here to explain that. When a woman gives birth, she doesn't give birth to a body, she gives birth to a body-soul unity. At death, there's an unnatural rending between body and soul. As believers, we say at death we're absent from the body, present with the Lord. That's not a locational statement because souls don't have extension in space. It's a relational statement. Absent from the body, present with the Lord. But that's a temporary state. By way of making this concrete, my dad died in 1997. He's absent from the body, present with the Lord. But when the Lord appears a second time, then his soul will return to his body, and he will again be the essence of what he was when he was birthed. He was birthed as a body-soul unity. He'll again be a body-soul unity. So we get a resurrected body not when we die, but when Jesus appears a second time.
I mean, it's interesting because many of the questions obviously you have in here probably have been asked by every person watching right now. And that is, if heaven is perfect, it's going to be boring. How do you, and from Scripture, how do you answer that?
Well, we have such a misconception of what heaven is. We have almost a Platonic idea that we're going to be like Casper the Ghost strumming a harp on a cloud. But heaven is not something other than what we're experiencing. It's this universe restored without the stain of death and disease and decay and destruction.
Still this earth.
It's these mountains, these streams, it's these fields
that are... Because there's so many people that go, just like you said, it's like Star Wars. We're going to be out there floating, and, you know, it's going to be extraterrestrial bodies, and we're going to be able to walk through walls, and everything Christ did we're going to be able to do. And I'm going, and of course, I've read Randy Alcorn's book. Yours is backing it up, because you even quote him in here about what heaven is all about. We're going to be spending eternity there, and there's so few pastors, preachers that ever talk about heaven out of the pulpit.
Yeah, we're going to live in a real physical universe with a physically resurrected Christ, and we're forever going to explore the glory and grandeur, not only the one who saved us by his grace, but the glory and grandeur of his created handiwork. So will we be bored? No. We're going to learn and grow and develop without error.
So where is your dad's soul right now?
He is absent from the body, present with the Lord, because he was a believer. So he's very much in the condition that Jesus Christ described Lazarus, the beggar lying by the gate of a rich man in Luke chapter 16.
Is he in paradise or is he in heaven?
Well, paradise is a metaphor for talking about being in the presence of God. So he is now in the presence of God. So heaven is a person being in the presence of God, but it will one day also be a place, this universe transformed. And if you think about it, we say that glibly. This universe is 100 billion galaxies with 100 billion stars. We have not exhausted the outer limits of this universe. And even if we could, in an eternity, God could create new universes for us to explore.
Amen. Amen. We're talking about God here. I got to have you read. This will get your attention. Because about every 8 minutes, you folks out there are deciding, do I want to watch this or change the channel? You better watch right now. Will there be sex in heaven? Read C.S. Lewis.
Well, you know, this is an interesting quote.
Yeah.
C.S. Lewis says things in a poignant fashion.
Oh,
he does so right here. He says, I think our present outlook might be like that of a small boy who, on being told that the sexual act was the highest bodily pleasure, should immediately ask whether you ate chocolates at the same time. On receiving the answer no, he might regard absence of chocolates as the chief characteristic of sexuality. In vain you would tell him that the reason why lovers in their carnal raptures don't bother about chocolates is that they have something better to think of. The boy knows chocolate. He does not know the positive thing that excludes it. And we're in much the same position. We know the sexual life. We do not know, except in glimpses, the other thing which in heaven will leave no room for it. Hence, where fullness awaits, we anticipate fasting.
I mean, that is so succinct.
Yeah, it's great. I mean, it's great. It really says it all. We think, well, are we going to have sex in heaven? Because when we think about a relationship with
I love the chocolate
with
thing.
your wife,
Yeah.
you think, that's the highest bodily pleasure. But earth is the breeding colony, heaven is the homeland, and the relationship that we will have, we can have a sense of by extending the best experience we have on earth to what we'll have in the new heaven and new earth. So you're going to have a relationship with Sharron, but if you think of the best circumstance you've ever had in your marriage, that will be trumped.
That's when I spotted you in Trinity College across the room. We got to repeat that. Okay, will there be animals and pets in heaven?
Of course. Imagine the prejudice of thinking that there will be trees and flowers and fields and not animals. Animals are among God's most avant-garde creations. Of course there will be animals in heaven. If you think about this, Paradise Lost was a real physical place. Paradise Restored too will be a real physical place. But there's not going to be any devolution. I'm not going to lose my hair. 20 years ago when we did a broadcast, I had hair. I don't have any hair.
I've got a picture that proves it.
Yeah. But that's not going to happen. Our muscles are not going to become tighter and shorter. We're not going to devolve. We're going to, as it were, think about it this way. You have a DNA, and your DNA will flourish to complete perfection and always be at that point for all eternity. So you will always be in the flower of your youth, what you were intended to be if sin had never entered the world. So out of this world comes the best of all possible worlds, a world in which we will forever be able not to sin.
Now,
I think we're going to be 33 years old.
Say again?
I think we're going to be all 33 years old.
Yeah, well, I mean, it's that's a good way of thinking about it. It's a good way of thinking. It's like a rose. That rose
Best part.
is fully formed. It's not just a bud, it's fully formed and stays that way because there's no devolution.
Yeah, absolutely. I think it's
Because there's no
Devolution.
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 Yeah. The opposite of evolution.
Yeah.
So you evolve, as it were, to complete perfection, to the flower of youth, but you never devolve.
Where is hell? Is it in Siberia? He talks about screaming, 9 miles in the crust of the earth, tormented souls screaming. Are there flames in hell? He covers all of this. Give us a short answer.
The short answer is heaven is in another dimension. Hell is another dimension. If you think about it this way.
Do you remember when TBN? Do you remember when they had somebody that said that they drilled down in the earth?
They showed the microphone down.
And they could hear screaming?
Yeah. Yeah, this is mythology. I mean, this is why you have to take experiences and test it in light of Scripture, hold fast to the good. We're wretched flatlanders if it gets right down to it. You know, we cannot imagine stepping over the threshold into Narnia. And that's how it will be. At present, there's a veil that separates the habitation of God and the habitation of humanity. In eternity, that veil will be removed. And then Christ will be as close to us physically as he is now close to us spiritually. So just as heaven is the habitation of God, coupled with the habitation of humanity, hell is the absence of that. Hell is the absence of a relationship with the very one we were created to be with for all eternity. It is a separation from the goodness and grace of God. So God continues to sustain even those who reject him in existence, even though they've chosen to live apart from his goodness and his grace, and that's what hell is. And the flames of hell are metaphors that magnify that reality so we don't miss. Metaphors are magnifying glasses. They don't obscure reality, they enhance reality that we would ordinarily miss.
Do you remember the words that they said that Spurgeon would preach about hell? I don't know if you ever read any of his sermons.
Oh, yeah.
And that people would actually grip the backs of the pews, feeling like they were going to drop into hell.
Yeah, like Jonathan Edwards, same thing.
Yes.
Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah.
So you don't think there's a literal hell then with flames?
I do. But flames are a metaphorical way of talking about the horror of what separation from the very one we're designed to have a relationship with will be like. So there are many metaphors that the Bible uses. Flames are one of those metaphors, but think about another metaphor, blackest darkness forever. Can you imagine being in blackest darkness for a week or a month or a year? Blackest darkness forever. But these are metaphors that communicate a far more graphic reality. C.S. Lewis,
yes,
to quote him again,
yes.
C.S. Lewis said there are only two kinds of people in the world. There are those who say to God, thy will be done on bended knee. And there are those to whom God in the end says, thy will be done. If you do not want a relationship with me in time, I ratify that for all eternity. So God resurrects all human beings. Jesus said, do not be amazed at this. A time is coming when all whom the graves will come out. Some will rise to live and some will rise to be eternally condemned. To be eternally condemned is to be separated from the love and grace of God for all eternity. So no longer having the sustaining power of the universe as your best friend, the absence of that relationship is what hell is. People marginalize hell by thinking it's just flames. It's far worse than that. Well, flames point to that graphic reality.
It's where Satan is going to go ultimately, right?
Yes.
A lake of
hell
fire.
was created for the devil and his angels.
Right.
Yes.
Right.
Yes.
And you say the lake of fire is metaphor.
It is a metaphor. It's the same thing. If we say Jesus is a lion and a lamb, Jesus doesn't look like a lion. He doesn't look like a lamb. It's not what Jesus looks like. It's what he is like. It's telling us something about Jesus that we might ordinarily miss. And the same thing is true with the metaphors that the Bible uses with respect to hell. Think about it this way. If there are flames of fire literally in hell, how can it be blackest darkness forever? Because flames emit light. Or think about heaven. Is it really just pearly gates and streets of gold in the end? No, those are metaphors that point to a far more beautiful reality. So it isn't about what heaven looks like, it's about what heaven is like.
How do you know, in reading the scripture, and the way you read it is very deep, not shallow, and how do you know that's a metaphor, this is actual?
Yeah.
Because there's where, because many eons ago, people thought that the earth did not rotate. Yeah. Because it was sit on pillars, it says.
Yeah.
And so that was a metaphor, but they took that as actual.
Yeah. Yeah, and this is all part of what's called the art and science of biblical interpretation. It's a science in that rules apply. It's an art in that the more you apply it, the better you get at it. So, for example, in the book of Revelation, John talks about golden bowls full of incense. Now, are we to take that literally? The answer is absolutely not, and the reason we can be 100% certain of that is John actually interprets it for us. He says, those are the prayers of the saints. So he does the interpretation for us. But in many cases, he assumes that we will be able to interpret ourselves because we know the Bible. You know, the question you ask is so strategic, it's so important, because when the Bible was put in the hands of the laity, the reformers used to worry that this would open the floodgates of iniquity because they didn't know how to interpret or rightly divide the word of truth. And the antidote to that, from the standpoint of the Reformation, was interpreting Scripture in light of Scripture. It's called the analogy of faith, and that, according to Luther, for example, was what would stem the floodgate of iniquity, so that people would really learn to read the Bible in light of the Bible. So if you, Revelation, for example, is 404 verses. 278 of those verses are direct allusions to Old Testament passages, and you have no hope of understanding what John is talking about unless you know the Old Testament.
Wow. Sure. Do people in heaven know what is presently happening on earth? These are all coming from his book, and he has a whole example in the book. So
yeah, the answer is no.
They do? Okay.
No, they don't. And people think they do because they take a passage like Hebrews chapter 12, which says, therefore, since we're surrounded by such a great cloud of witnesses, let us throw everything that hinders and the sin that so easily is entangled. So they get this picture of people sitting in the great grandstand of heaven looking at what's happening on earth. But actually, if you read Scripture in light of Scripture, what we were just talking about, you find out that Hebrews chapter 12 is actually describing those that have gone before us, from Abel to Samuel, in Hebrews chapter 11, which is, of course, the great Hall of Faith chapter in the Bible. So no, there's no biblical warrant to believe that those who have died know what is presently happening on earth. Now, they know what's happening in the presence of God. They have a relationship with God and with those that are departed, but not. So the whole notion, for example, of ghosts, which I deal with in the book, there's no such thing as ghosts or poltergeist, noisy ghosts. That is mythology. Satan likes to play upon that landscape of mythology because he is real and he does tempt us in the present epoch.
You know, you hear the secular world, whenever their father dies and they're on the platform, some presentation, they'll say, I just lost my father, but I know he's looking down on me right now and seeing this award that I'm receiving. No such thing, right?
No such thing. I mean, it might be a comforting thought, but it isn't true. And the reason I can say that authoritatively is you can demonstrate that the Bible is an infallible repository of redemptive revelation. It corresponds to reality. It's an authentic authority. And so we test these things in light of Scripture, hold fast to that which is good.
You say, will we be like God in heaven? You explain all of that.
Yeah, and the answer quite simply is no, we will not be like God in heaven.
Why is that?
Because God has what are called incommunicable attributes, like omnipresence, omnipotence, omniscience. We will not participate in those prerogatives. Humanity cannot bear the burden of omniscience. We will continue to learn and grow and develop, so we will always be human. So the distinction between angels and humans is not erased, nor is the distinction between God and humans erased in eternity. We will still always be human, and God is still God with all of this. So there are communicable attributes that find reflection in human beings, but not incommunicable attributes, which are those omnis that I was just talking about.
We will serve God in heaven.
We will love and worship Him. We will have you have a relationship. I know you and Sharron have a deep relationship with the Lord, but think about that relationship being magnified in eternity, because then you will see Him, as it were, face to face. Now again, that's a metaphor, because while Jesus has an actual physical face and will forever be Theanthropos, always in flesh, God the Father is spirit. Those who worship Him in spirit and in truth. So we will relate to Him, but when we say face to face, we're using a way of talking about knowing God in His essence.
Right.
Out of body experiences, you hear about all of these people that have arrived in heaven. Some of them are secular. Some of them are, like one is a Baptist pastor that was in a horrible automobile wreck. Factual or not?
Well, they're real experiences, but again, experience is notoriously unreliable. We always test experience in light of Scripture, hold fast to that which is good. You think about all the near-death experiences, whether Betty Eadie, who was embraced by the light, a Mormon writer, talks about seeing Jesus and recognizing him from a pre-existence, which of course evangelical Christians don't believe in. Or you think about this neurosurgeon, Eben Alexander, who wrote the book Proof of Heaven. He says that there's no such thing as wrong, and that there's unconditional love, and therefore Adam Lamza in the Connecticut massacre of the Newtown school shooting, where he kills 20 kids, 6 adults and his mother, he flies off on the wings of a butterfly with no eternal consequences. The ancients knew better than to think such a thing. But the point here is that if you look at all the near-death experiences, they're all different. Now, they can all be wrong logically, but they can't all be right.
That's right.
Yeah.
And that's why you have to take those experiences and test them in light of Scripture.
Good point. Good point. You got to get your book. We didn't cover. I mean, I've got so many things I want to ask him. Did Jesus go to hell? You're going to have to get your copy, because that's commonly talked about. Doesn't a loving God want everyone in heaven? That's talked about, especially today. If you get the Oprah mentality, obviously we're all going to go to heaven, and God is every place, and there's more than one. He covers every possible area that you've ever wanted to know and did not have the research material to find the answers. He's done it right here. So spend time, write that website down, get your copy of the book, and if you're watching right now, even though this book, every book that Hank has written are fabulous, this is the greatest book of all. Spend time in the Word of God. Pick it up, read at least 2 chapters every day. It's a good start, because Jesus Christ is the answer to every need you may have. And if you don't believe that, cry out to Him, "Oh God, forgive me of all of my sin. Be merciful to me, a sinner. Change my life. I accept you today." He will change your life. God bless you. Bye-bye. Good job.
I'm for life.
I am too.
Now there's a place we can network online with other Teens for Life.
Teensforlife.com.
I have my own page. I can share music and videos with friends.
At Teensforlife.com, I can stay informed about life issues and speak out for those without a voice.
I can even get help with my homework.
Join the revolution.
Join the revolution.
Join the revolution.
Right now, you can get 3 music downloads when you register your page on Teensforlife.com.
Join the revolution.
At age 34, Peter Herrick joined the Navy Reserve and was deployed to Iraq.
When the mortar round hit, I was completely knocked out.
When he returned home, Paralyzed Veterans of America was there to help.
We advocate, we educate, and we process claims through the VA, and we follow that claim from the beginning to the end.
Without Paralyzed Veterans of America, I really honestly believe I'd still be in the hospital.
You can help our paralyzed veterans. To learn more, visit pva.org.
In our nutrition tip, we talked about some stuff that was really cool.
Oh, burning. Burning.
because it's a heart, we can like run and like on the beach. or not. Oh, my thighs got too heavy when I hit the mat.
So get plenty of salmon.
Oh, can we start again? My mic just fell down my pants.
Welcome to Know the Cause, a TV show dedicated to